Um, record
All
now.
right. All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we're ready to start vibing.
Ready.
I thought I would put the shirt on.
Yeah. We've been, huh?
I said I thought I would put the shirt on. Vibe.
Vibe with me. I love that shirt. Mine says, I'll record too, so I have my own video.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, wait. Nope. Oh, wait. I have to request permission.
Oh. Is it requesting?
I think so.
Mm. Is it working now?
Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, no. I don't know.
I clicked on more.
I believe.
And it said allow record. And I can forbid record.
Forbid.
Forbid.
Wow.
That's the wrong word, eh?
Wow, Zoom. Forbid. All right.
I know.
What an option.
Wow. I like that option. I like the word because it's like, so I forbid you. And I just picture this, what do you call them? A wizard with a white beard and a hat with a stick and says, I forbid you. Whenever
I hear the word forbid, like, my instincts are like, oh yeah. Like, wait.
You said what? The rebel comes out, eh?
Exactly. Like, you're gonna forbid me, then I'm gonna do it like even 10 times stronger, harder, faster. I'm gonna record even more intensely.
That's right.
With even more conviction.
Yeah, you know what? I'm the same way. And my husband knows that. He's like, I don't tell you what to do. I ask you what to do. And I always make sure that you are okay doing it, because then if I tell you what to do, or I ask you to do something and you don't want to do it, you just won't do it.
Mm-hmm.
You still do what you want, right? And I'm like,
Yeah, he learned.
Yeah, it only took like 13 years. Yeah, it'll be 13 years on June 30th that we'll be married. Mm-hmm. And together for 15.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, and yet it feels like we have just recently met and have found that common language. It takes time for any relationship, and I believe that's very important. And since we are talking about like catabolic and anabolic energies, that is how a lot of relationships start, very catabolic. Because everything is about me, and wanting to win. And it's a lot of fighting, it's a lot of arguing, unless one person stays quiet and holds it all in.
Yeah.
Which is also a catabolic way of carrying themselves.
Yeah, I think so many of our patterns that we bring into relationships until we bring them from the subconscious to the conscious are passed down generationally. And so a lot of relationships, like, we attract what we need. Like, we attract what we need to give ourselves. So that's how so many start. But that's not sustainable, like, to depend on another being to fill that within. So to just bring those patterns to the conscious mind, like, that can shift any relationship.
And living at that with that kind of energy, it's very destructive. Very destructive to a person and to a relationship. And this type of work that we do, I believe would be extremely helpful to be taught to the children, so that way they know what energy is and how to use it to build themselves and to build their life around them, as opposed to break everything down.
Yeah. I just love that you said break everything down, because that's exactly where the word catabolic comes from breaking down, like from breaking down. I forget exactly. I want to say it comes from like breaking down molecules or comes from, I want to look it up real quick.
Hmm. I would imagine it would be done on a cellular level.
Yeah, because I remember, all right, I'm going to look up all right. Catabolism. Yeah, catabolism is the breakdown of complex molecules in living organisms to form simpler ones, together with the release of energy. So, in other words, destructive metabolism.
Yeah, and that's why so many find themselves sick.
Exactly. So, anabolism is the synthesis of complex molecules in living organisms from simpler ones, together with the storage of energy. Constructive metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Building.
so that's where catabolic, and anabolic come from.
Yeah, but it is a shift from one to the other, and it's
Mhm.
not an easy shift, right? I have gone through that shift myself, as I shared with you before, being like very, very, very low at probably like level zero if there was one, right? And then shifting into more anabolic energy, and it takes a while,
Yeah.
right? And this is one of the reasons why so many people are sitting on that fence, on that edge, and not wanting to go over it because the catabolic energy is familiar
Yes.
and it's
Yeah.
comfortable and it's cozy. And even though it doesn't feel like that, it serves a purpose to them,
Mm-hmm.
right? It served a purpose for me. But then figuring out what was happening, what I was doing, what I was choosing to do, how I was going day by day, and figuring out that, yeah, I was benefiting from it, but how was I benefiting from it? You know what I mean? And that's not something, if somebody came and they told me about that, I would not take it, right? It had to come from me, and I was the one that had to figure it all out on my own. And that's where the biggest shift happens, right? When you go through those dark times, difficult times, and you realize that there's a better way. And yes, it's going to take a lot of work, but the payout is so much better.
Yeah. Well, it's empowering, because basically with catabolic energy, we're giving our power away to others, because with level 1 victim, we're relying on others to make us feel better, or
Mm-hmm.
believing that others will make us feel better, believing that others will show up how we want them to show up, like either with sympathy or they'll do things for us. And same with level 2, it's a way of trying to control others through force or intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
And level 3 anabolic is when we expand to level 3, that's that first level where if we're in catabolic energy for a while, level 3 can feel like such a shock to the system, to
Yeah.
have like be like that, having that awareness, like, whoa, I am doing this, I am responsible for doing this,
Mm-hmm.
I'm attracting this and perpetuating this stagnant energy. And it's like last year, like over a year ago at this point, I guess last fall, when I was using level 1 energy, thinking that if I showed just how hurt I was, just how much pain I was, just how much I was suffering, then the people around me would change their behavior to match how I wanted the external world to be. And finally, I just realized that wasn't happening. And I had to hold up the mirror to myself and be like, all right, I know enough about energy leadership and energy flow to know that my level 1 isn't going to change any of these patterns. It's not going to change people's behavior toward me. If anything, it's just making them afraid of being around me. And then that, like, having that awareness to be like, well, I have the choice here. Which level can I choose? And to, like, in this situation that I'm referring to, I chose level 5. I was like, I'm the one, like, it's time for me to be the adult in this situation, use level 5, and just be the calm, cool, collected leader that the level 5 archetype embodies. But it did take that initial, like, level 3 shock, like that ego death of, oh shit, it's me. I'm doing this.
Yeah, and I think that is, like you said, it is one of the biggest shocks that a person can go through when they realize that it's like, holy shit, I am the one responsible for it. I am in control. I do have a choice. I can choose and decide to act differently, and I can choose to not react. And I can choose a different action and realize that there's a choice, and that this whole time I had been making a choice unconsciously, because that's the biggest difference, right? One is unconscious, the other one is conscious. And doing it unconsciously for such a long time, it takes practice to choose consciously. It's like when you go to the gym, you can't expect to come out of the gym after day 1 looking all ripped and nice and sexy and the way you want it to look. It's going to take time and practice. So this applies to this as well, right? That kind of concept applies to this as well when it comes to shifting your energy, when it comes to choosing to live at a certain level or a certain life or lifestyle, or having the things that you want and keeping those things. All of that requires conscious awareness.
Yeah. And just like with going to the gym, it's a choice. Like, it's just like it's a choice to hire a personal trainer if you need assistance. It's a choice to work on your mind and to practice, like maintain that mind fitness practice.
Yeah, and that's what, like, the work that we do, that's exactly what it is. It's a mind fitness, right?
Yeah.
It's a mindset, and everything starts with a mindset, right? If the mindset is not there, whatever it is that you're trying to do, not going to be very successful at it. Now, mind you, there is a different definition of success, right? Just for some people, might be just doing and getting it over with. That's success to them, right? So in that case, they'll be successful. But to me, success means, again, depending on what it is that we are talking about. But if we're talking about mindset, to me, success means that, yes, I'm going to have those difficult situations, those difficult times, but they're going to be very short-lived.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like mitigating how much time we spend. Like, we're always going to have catabolic energy is always going to be part of us, because if we didn't have it, if we didn't have access to levels 1 and level 2, we might get ourselves in some situations where we're actually not safe.
Yeah.
And like, even the level 1 energy I had living with someone who was not a safe partner for me to live with, all the level 1 energy I was experiencing was a signal to me. Like, it was a way of saying, you are not safe. There's no reason to live like this, to live in fear, like to like brace for impact when you hear someone's footsteps. But bringing awareness to that, because it's also an addiction. Like, adrenaline is highly addictive. So just bringing awareness to it and it takes time and conscious thought and the ability to observe yourself without judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key. That's why I love energy leadership work and the energy leadership index assessment so much, is because it holds up a mirror so you can see exactly what you're doing. And I don't want to say the only reason, but one of the reasons it's such a shock at first is because we experience a moment of judging ourselves for using those energies.
Mm-hmm.
We understand that there's no right or wrong, good or bad. They're just levels of consciousness that we have access to. And it's totally normal that we use that catabolic energy because we have come from a long line of ancestors who did need that fight or flight, because so many of our ancestors were not safe. Mm-hmm. And did not have the safety and security and basic necessities that we have now. And if 90% of our belief systems and thought patterns are in place by the time we're 7 or 8, then, and that's passed down generation to generation without bringing those patterns to the conscious mind and evaluating, like an honest, objective evaluation, then of course we're gonna use those patterns that have been passed down. Like of course, like level 1, the mindset at level 1 has a lot of lack and scarcity. So of course, if our ancestors have been in survival mode, that's going to get passed down generation to generation until someone in the family, like us, and generation looks at level 1, like as though we can remove it from ourselves and look at it like we're holding like
Jello.
Like water or something, like reactive water or Jello, like whatever it is. Like we can look at it and be like, oh, this is what it's doing. Like this is level 1 or this is level 2, and just have that objective, like radical acceptance approach, so that we can then move forward and understand that we actually have way more options available to us than fight or flight or freeze or fawn, draw all these new stress reactions that or complex PTSD and people pleasing. But yeah, it all really comes down to that. Level 1 is pretty much flight, and level 2 is fight.
And would you say level 3 is freeze?
No, I say freeze is level 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's where the paralyzing part of it comes.
Yeah, like that's where I spent a lot of time in freeze and fawn. Like those were my two, like that's how I kept myself safe, was like it especially when it comes to harsh language. Like if someone uses harsh language with me, my defense used to be, I mean, it still is, I'm not gonna lie, it still is, immediately to freeze. And in some situations I would fawn, or be like, you're absolutely right. Like people could sling whatever harsh criticisms at me, and just to get it to stop, I would just submit, like, you're right, like I'm a piece of shit. Just like that was my like go-to, like get it, like, which could be level 3, because at level 3 we're trying to just like get to a place of peace, like just wanting peace. And yeah, but I'd say that the freeze would be level 1. Like it would just be shock, especially when someone would react harshly to something I was putting out there, like saying in conversation, because it's, for me, because I wouldn't use such harsh language, and I take great lengths to, I do what I can to not hurt other people's feelings. So then when people would say things that are super hurtful, because my number one love language is words of affirmation, which is beautiful when people are loving toward me in language. But when they're harsh toward me, it is like I internalize it as shame and guilt and like I've done something wrong, because if someone's having that harsh of a reaction, then it must be me, because there's no other reason to be reacting that harshly. So that would be that shock would cause me to freeze, and then for like 2 weeks afterwards be thinking like, oh, I should have said this, or like I could have responded this way. I probably could have like said something different initially that wouldn't have invoked that strong of a reaction. And that's all, like all those past based thoughts are that's level 1 as well, because how it makes me feel is shame, depressed, like any thoughts really of wanting to change the past, I would consider level 1.
Yeah. I feel like you were just describing me. My freeze was literally like, I would call it like a blackout, where there's absolutely nothing happening here. And it's just frozen in time and space, and standing there trying to not let anything in, and there's nothing to come out.
Yeah.
And it would always be, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? What should I have done better? That did I do enough? Why did I say that? Right?
Yeah.
Why did I do that? Because I want everyone to be happy, and I want everyone to be joyful, and I want everyone to feel love and be love. And I did something wrong to create that.
Yep.
It's my fault, right? And that is all level 1, and that's some heavy shit to be living with.
Yeah, it's the heaviest. That's why it's level 1. It's so, and that's why it's so hard to get out of. Like, so with the 2 energy levels, in terms of, well, energy. So energy, I think we all have learned, we all have enough of like a basis in science to know that energy expands and contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So level 1 is the most contracted.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're tight in our ball and our vortex of level 1. Nothing can get in, nothing can go out, and it feels like drowning and or suffocating. Sometimes it feels like suffocating.
I would call it suffocating, because I used to catch myself not breathing, holding my breath.
Yes, same. Yup.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like, oh no, you forget to breathe. So come on, take a few deep breaths. Reprogramming.
I think on a primal level, it's like I want to disappear. I don't want to exist. I want out.
Yeah.
Like please, like something, please take me out of the game.
Well, that's why the shrinking, right? It's almost like so you become invisible. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that could even be a level 1 thought, like I'm invisible, like I don't matter, I don't exist, like nobody sees me, nobody understands me. I think that would be my one of my longest running lifelong level 1 thoughts was nobody understands me. And that would make me feel so lost, so alone, to the point where I just want to contract and like want someone to come save me. But there's no one, no one's coming, because it's really no one's responsibility, and no one could weed out the thoughts for me. I have to transmute them myself. And that's really what this is all about, is transmuting, transforming, alchemizing that energy so that we expand. So maybe we should give a quick background on really what catabolic energy is and like what it does.
Yeah.
So catabolic energy is draining, it's fueling, it's limiting, it's restrictive, constrictive, destructive. I think the key word is destructive.
It eats at you. That's how I would say it. Right? Like thinking of cannibal. Cannibal will eat himself if that's what needs to happen. And that's what, to me, like when the first time I heard that word catabolic, that's what I envisioned. Someone just sitting there and eating themselves. Because that's what it does internal to us. It's ourselves, right? Since we are the ones that have control over it once we become conscious of it, right? Because prior to it, it's unconscious. So that's where you have no control. And it's really difficult to, you know what? I don't want to say it's really difficult. I don't want to say it's really difficult to get from one to the other, because it's not that difficult. It just takes a little bit of willpower.
Yeah.
It's that this is where I am. Now, do I want to be here or do I want to be here? Right? Just shifting a little bit. And every day, just shifting a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. One day will become effortless. And I started waking up in the mornings with like smile on my face and realizing like, why am I smiling? I don't know. I'm just so happy and I feel good. Even if there's a little bit of anxiety going on, I still have that smile on my face and still feeling good, but not giving that power to that anxiety, because I know it's going to go away if I just ignore it long enough. It's like a crying baby. I mean, don't avoid the crying baby. Don't let it cry. But it's like a crying baby. If it's crying, if you avoid it long enough.
Sprouted seed.
What was sprouted seed?
Oh no.
In apples, sometimes we find sprouted seeds or seeds that are starting to sprout. And we like to then go and like, I can't even like hold it up. It's so slippery. It's like starting to sprout in there a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
And then we like to go and plant them. We have possibly have an apple tree or two growing in the backyard from last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh no.
That's exactly what we were talking about on the call yesterday.
Oh, that's why I was like, I got some apple seeds that I planted last year. And before the winter came, they were still growing, right? But mind you, with the winter, with the cold, they might have frozen, but only time will show.
Yeah, and I mean, it's Mother Earth's pretty amazing. Like what comes back to life in the spring.
Yeah, same thing with us, right? We always come back to life.
Apple tree. Right now it's a small apple tree.
It will be. Yeah, well, right now it's under the snow because we got snow again. You sure it's on backwards?
Yo, it's snowing here right now.
I can't see if it's snowing right now, but it was snowing, and yes, snow, of course.
Looks good.
Okay, go eat your snow somewhere else.
Stay hydrated.
Clean snow, yeah. I used to do the same thing when I was little all the time. Yeah, eat the snow and just make sure it wasn't yellow.
Yep. I know. I used to eat it, and then my mom would tell us horror stories about kids coming into her office because she's a nurse and with like twigs in their throats, and it took all the fun out of it for me.
All I see is a balloon floating, happy and joyful, full of helium. Pop! Boom.
Yeah. Well, I would still try to eat it, but then I would like mush it. I would like inspect it, so then by the time that that I'd be like sure there were no twigs, it'd be melted and not fun anymore.
Maybe chewing the snow would have been helpful.
No.
Those twigs.
I won't have the snow on my feet.
That's okay. Okay.
That looks delicious.
Yes.
I'm glad. I'll live vicariously through Ethan. Like, yeah, how's the smell?
I know. No, I think
Tell me everything.
how did I used to eat the snow? How did I used to do this and that and they're doing, and they have like absolutely no fear and like full of bravery and optimism and everything,
Yeah.
right? That's talking about anabolic and catabolic energy, right? That is a perfect example, like that is a perfect example of anabolic energy. If you look at a child,
Yeah.
children very rarely carry catabolic energy, and
I mean,
given to them by us.
oh, and when they do, it's just immediate. Like they don't hold it in. They have their reactions, and then they're expert alchemizers because they're not ashamed of how they react.
It's like this big piece of snow he just brought in. Can you put it outside, please, Ethan? Why? Because I don't want that snow inside. It's gonna make so much mess, and I just cleaned the house on Friday. You can put it in the sink. But yeah, like you were saying, that they're great alchemizers.
Yeah, like if we experience our catabolic energy the way children do and just react, like cry, throw a tantrum, and then get it out, like it's done, it's transmuted.
Yeah, that's like letting go,
Mm-hmm.
right? Something happens, instead of holding on to it and putting up the good front where I got this, I can do this. I don't need to show my emotions. I don't need to show my feelings. I don't need to tell everyone what's going on, the war that is building up there, because it starts with a small little battle. And if that battle is not dealt with, it's going to turn into a full blown out war.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens. Tiny little catabolic energy that turns into a full blown war of cannibals coming at you, at me, right? And it's either we deal with the little one and
Right.
work through it, and this is where for women we cry, we talk a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's even a show called 100 Humans that prove that women talk a lot. So I was like, yay! And also proved that women are superior species, but that's just besides the point. It's a good show, by the way. But talk about it. Don't hold on to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cry if you need to cry. If you need to scream, there's a reason why we as children were told, just go scream in a pillow.
I was just thinking that. I was just gonna say punch a pillow. I used to
Get it
beat the
out.
shit out of my pillow when my brothers upset me.
So it must be a really soft pillow.
I'd go to my room and just like wail on my pillow. And then I'd emerge from my room like nothing ever happened.
See, and that is beautiful on its own. You have all that energy. Catabolic energy is a burst of energy that we do not need. Expel it.
I just see so much potential. Like when I see catabolic energy, I just like picture all this kinetic energy inside someone. Like there's a lot when we're experiencing catabolic energy, it actually takes a lot of energy. Like it takes a lot of energy to hold on to self. Personally, when I'm experiencing level 1 energy, the hardest block for me to move through, and I guess there are elements of level 2 as well. Like level 2 has some resentment, blame, and so when I can experience, I would say I can experience level 2 energy while exemplifying or embodying level 1 energy. Because when I'm blaming others or feeling rage or anger, I don't want to project it outward. So then,
Do not drink any.
Mm-hmm.
so then I'll.
You don't know
Oh my
this.
God, there's dog's hair inside of this all.
Yeah.
Okay, Ethan, can you please go to put this away in the kitchen? Okay. Play with it in the sink.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, go on.
Yeah.
Enjoy our children being home.
Homeschool.
Yeah, that's what I have to do. Actually, there's some stuff that school sent that I have to sit down with them and go through it and be the teacher. Yeah. Coming up next.
Yeah. Homeschool of Yana.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all gonna get firsthand training of what it takes to homeschool our children.
I think this could be a great shift in how we collectively prioritize. I think a lot of parents are going to learn just how valuable teachers are.
Oh, I know how valuable they are.
Just
I
how,
taste it firsthand.
because it was always bizarre to me why teachers aren't the millionaires, and like why aren't teachers and nurses the millionaires in society?
Yeah.
You know, why is it businessmen? They're not regenerative. Like, it's not a regenerative structure, like a hierarchical structure. It goes against nature. So I would think that the resources would be more helpful if invested in the true potential in teachers. And like, if being a teacher was one of the most, like, I remember it being like a joke, like those who can't do teach.
Mm-hmm. You know,
Like that's a story our society has been saying, like it's a joke, that like line. And that's, teachers are incredible. Like, they're heroes. They're shaping the future.
they should be the same level as doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what potentially they're doing. They are doctors for our children. They're teaching our children. As a doctor would kind of school their patient,
Mm-hmm.
right? And yet one gets paid well and the other one does not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm hoping one of the prayers I will send up at this time is that society really reprioritizes a lot of energy that we spend on corporations, businessmen, like making the businessman the hero, and even the athletes, the highest paid athletes and celebrities, making them the heroes of society, and recirculating all that energy we send their way, whether through our attention or money, and recirculating it to the nurses and teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're figuring out, like right now, when we all do have to work together as one organism, one global organism. I think we're really figuring out who the real heroes of society are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where our attention needs to go.
Yeah, a lot of our attention needs to go there, kind of reshaping and reframing a lot of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
And farmers and growers. Like, I just thought of Oregon Trail. Do you remember that game?
no, I don't think so.
Like, online game?
I don't think I've played that game.
It was this like computer game. I don't know if it was online. It might have just been a program, but it was a computer game I played as a kid. And you have an option when you start the Oregon Trail. You have the option of which archetype you're going to be. And I remember the banker from Boston starts out with the most money. And I think there was also a farmer option there. And I wanted the most money to start out with so I could buy the things like the cattle and the food supply and ammunition. So I choose the banker from Boston. And looking back, it's like, wow, that indoctrination starts young. Like, if you want to make money, this is the career path. If you want to be a teacher or like a nurse, get used to living just with your basic necessities. If even, like, some teachers don't even get paid enough for that and need second jobs. Like, that's madness to me.
Yeah, and that stuff, like, that needs to change, because if we're telling our children that the only way you're going to make the money that you wish you could have and make is for you to be a doctor, for example, then not that many children are going to believe in themselves, because not every child wants to be a doctor. Not every child believes that they can be a doctor. But if we look at our society right now, people that are making the most amount of money are those people that didn't even go to college, didn't even finish high school.
Oh, what people are you talking about?
Um, who was it? I don't want to say Tony Robbins, but for some reason Tony Robbins comes to mind. That I don't think he's gone to college. I don't even think he finished high school either.
Well, I think that like I think what we're seeing now what's become clear is that people with capital are the people with all the money, like people who have had capital, and that people whose only income is based in labor, like the actual work they do, like active work, like capital is passive income. Mm-hmm. So once someone has capital, they could just keep it in the market and watch it grow. And labor and capital is taxed less than labor income. So that's why, like, when I was mentoring these kids in Dorchester, Massachusetts, like a neighborhood in Boston, one kid was telling me about his mom who works 3 jobs. And for me, that was just a perfect example of, like, the argument that people who want handouts from the government are lazy. It's like, they're not lazy. They're working their asses off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are people, like, they're not working any less than people who are making millions, billions, whose just capital is just growing exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who we need. We need laborers, we need teachers, we need farmers. Without them, there'd be no economy. There'd be it.
Yeah, what will we eat if we don't have farmers?
Yeah.
Right? Because most people don't want to grow themselves.
Yeah.
It's too much work. And yet, the farmers that are doing all that hard work that we don't want to do, they are not able to keep up. They're not able to work.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Exactly.
There's a show I watched on Netflix. I think it's called Unsustainable or something like that. They're talking about farmers and how they, how when GMOs came around, they said that farming is not sustainable. So the only way we can sustain it is if we use GMOs. And then these farmers are coming around and saying, if you take care of the soil, take care of the earth, it's happy, it's healthy. And you can actually grow a lot more than you can with GMOs. And you can use those seeds every year. You don't have to buy new ones. So it's more than sustainable.
Yeah.
And they don't get paid enough.
It's just the GMOs, just Monsanto wanted to own everything.
Yeah.
It's just corporations wanting to own every aspect of our lives, like wanting to own our food supplies, wanting to own our water supplies. Like, next is going to be air. Yeah. Like, we need oil to heat our homes. Like, we're dependent on corporations and banks and oil tycoons for everything.
Yeah.
That's all going to change. We're changing that.
Yeah. It's an industrial age. That's what happened. When that came around, I mean, it's awesome. It's great. I'm not complaining much about it, but I'm still complaining because there's still a lot wrong with it, in my opinion.
It's just not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's like hierarchies don't work. Like, we are the only species in nature that has created a hierarchy that puts some people at the top and some people at the bottom. Like, nowhere else, everywhere else in nature, it's a web. It's sacred geometrical structures. It's cycles. Like, no other species in nature judges either. Like, no, like here in New England, nothing judges winter as bad or annoying, or it just is. Like, and then we have spring and then summer and then fall and then winter. And it just is. Like, it's not like one's bad, one's better than the other.
Yeah.
It's how Mother Earth does her thing. And we're the, like,
and the trees don't cry that it's going to be winter.
yeah. No, they just do their thing and then they come back in the spring.
Yeah.
Back to life in the spring. And we're the only species that judges any of this. Like, we're the only species that has incorporated hierarchical structure into the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
I'm hoping that this break in that system will help everyone connect back with nature and see patterns and discern patterns in nature, like the mycelial network that covers 90% of the Earth's surface, like just below the Earth's surface. It's 90% mycelium. And that's exactly how humans are now learning how to relate and operate and work together as a network, not a tower. This is not a ladder. There's no like person who wins, who gets to the top of the ladder and like wins. There's no prize up there.
Yeah, I mean, we all come here the same way and we leave the same way.
Yeah.
So what's the prize really? The prize is really who's gonna live the happiest life, right? That's what my cats are like, running up and down the stairs now, chasing each other. The dog was chasing them earlier. It's like a hard do. But the prize is who's gonna live the happiest life ever, right? Joy, love,
Joy, yeah, connection.
yeah.
Like, I think it's a great time for people to really think about what happiness means to them and evaluate, like, has this job been bringing me joy? Has nice attempt.
He normally takes a cutting board and, mommy watches him and he cuts the apple and everything. But right now, he just washed the apple and he wanted to come here and show Miss Rachel his apple stabbing skills.
Ah.
Yeah.
It looks like a delicious apple.
Granny Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My favorite.
Yes, don't eat that cereal. Oh, yeah. No, this time it's like the way I thought about it and I think about it is we've been wanting changes, right? All of us have been crying and begging for changes to take place in this world, that something needs to change. We weren't necessarily all clear about what kind of changes we wanted, but we all want to change. So here it is. It's happening, and there's going to be more changes following this. But what changes follow this, I think we do have a little bit of, what's the word? I can't even think of the word, but kind of like, I'm trying to think of like molding the outcome, manifesting the outcome that we want, that we all have power to have the outcome that we want, to manifest that outcome for the human race. But we all need to come together as a human race and kind of like decide what is it that we really want.
Yeah.
How we're going to go and bring that into reality.
It's up to each individual to get like this. Like I mentioned in the call yesterday, and the reason that it's so hard to prove is or show people who aren't feeling it internally is because it is an internal evolution. This is happening at a microcosmic level, and each microcosm has an enormous impact on the macrocosm. But humans are so obsessed with proof. Like, we need to see things to believe it because we've been detached from our intuition. Intuitively, you can tap in and feel it. You can just feel the change. You can feel the ripple effect. Like even as iPad coaches, like when I think back to my first coach, I remember telling her, like, I remember experiencing shifts and then being able to use the acknowledgement of working, like the experience of working with a coach, being acknowledged, being validated in my feelings, having someone champion my authentic self, champion my agenda, my agenda. That was an entirely new experience for me. I had never experienced that before. I'd always been told what to do. If I wanted feedback on any situation in my life, the feedback I would receive, as well-meaning as it would be advice or projections through the filter of someone's own agenda. There'd be very little curiosity about who I am, what I actually want. And I think that's the case with most people. Like, I don't think many of us really have that experience of having an advocate who can focus on you, on your agenda, your authenticity, and help you to bring it out. So I think so my first coach was my first experience of realizing that I actually have my own preferences.
Yeah.
And that alone taught me how to hold space for others and sit with others and ask them, how does that, just a simple question, how does that make you feel? That question was revolutionary for me. Like, when my coach would ask me that, I don't think people had ever asked me that before. I think
because they don't want to hear how you feel. Right? Kind of like freezes once in a while.
Yeah.
Most people don't ask that question, how do you feel? Because they don't really care how you feel. They care about how they feel.
Right.
They just want to wait and express of how they feel, but they don't care how you feel.
And it could be well-meaning, like it could be coming from a place of concern and wanting to, like, the other person to just feel better without even addressing like what it is the other person's feeling. So like, let's say, back in the day, if I was confiding in someone about a relationship and I'd say something like, oh, so-and-so said this, the response would be like, oh, he's a jerk, or he's this, he's that. And it'd be about like him, like whatever he did wrong that made me feel bad. But it wouldn't be like, well, how did that make you feel? So then I never really knew how I felt when certain things occurred, certain situations, like certain experiences. And so I would just like rely on other people's input. Like, okay, so like, yeah, he's an asshole. But the focus would always be on the person that we could mutually talk shit about, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's what happens with gossip. Like, when people gossip, there's someone that everyone's like mutually talking shit about. So it's always about the other person. And coaching was my first experience of having someone like, let's bring it back to you. Like, everybody, because everybody's playing out their own pattern. Let's bring it back to you. Like, how does that make you feel? And I have to like figure that out. Actually, that's one of sometimes when I am coaching people and I hear their thoughts, like, I can recognize now which thoughts are level 1, which are level 2, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear thoughts that are levels 1 and 2, my first instinct is to take that thought and ask, okay, so what I'm hearing is this. Your thought is, he never listens to me. Let's take that thought. How does it make you feel? And I find that more often than not, the person will recite another thought. Like, well, it makes me feel like he doesn't care, or it makes me feel like he this. And it's actually difficult for them. Like, I'm like, what emotion does it bring out?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're
I like to ask, where in your body are you feeling it?
Love that one.
Point of where in your body you're feeling it, because when they can point to where it hurts,
Mm-hmm.
then they can start to kind of connect with their feelings.
I love that one.
Difficult for people nowadays to connect with the feeling. Thoughts we can connect with, even though don't understand them most of the time. But feelings are very difficult to connect with, because even as children, most of us were taught not to feel. Don't show this. Don't feel that. This is how you should be doing it. This is how it should be feeling, right? Don't cry, because you're not supposed to cry, right? Toughen up.
Don't be sad. Like, don't be sad. Don't be upset. But what if you are upset? And what if there's amazing potent medicine in being upset? And figuring out what to do with that. Like, feelings are the gateway.
I was gonna say portal, because that's what I saw. I saw a portal, like jumping through a portal, like we see in the movies, like hyper jump.
It's so funny because I was about to say portal, and then I was like, I use that word way too much. I need to change it up.
See, great minds think alike.
Like, I'm gonna want to use that.
I used it for you.
As if we're just telepathically communicating at this point.
Yeah. But that's what it is, right? Feelings, because if we're talking about, let's say, manifestation, right? If you want to manifest anything into your life, you gotta bring all of your senses in. One of them is feeling. So if you don't feel, if you're not comfortable with your feelings, if you don't understand them, and you don't know how to tap into them, then the portal is closed.
Mm-hmm.
But feeling, that is the key component to getting from point A to point Z, skipping the rest of the alphabet.
Yeah, and I find it stops the thoughts.
It's
like
kind of like the dash.
You don't see me.
A dash, the portal. Z. Or Z, how you guys say it?
See me.
Ethan, let's see this. What was that? That thing is awesome.
It's a ginormous stuffy.
It's huge. Triceratops? Is that what it is? It's awesome. This thing is bigger than you.
No.
No, we're bigger?
Feel.
Let me see.
It's chunkier. Well, it's sitting in a chair.
Okay, you're taller.
But
Yeah.
it's chunkier.
It's chunkier. Yeah. That thing is definitely bigger than you.
Yeah. So anabolic, eh? These children.
Yeah. Joy. Fearless.
We have a lot to learn. We have a lot to learn from them. They are our teachers.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we were given the children that we have. Because they're our teachers, and it's our job to figure out what is it that we're supposed to learn from them and how to internalize it. Not punish them for it. And it's easier to punish the child and tell them not to do something, not to say something, than to learn from it.
I just love you have a cat on your lap, a green dinosaur. This is great. This is like intention for this session. Like, it's setting my intention to just like detach from any end results, because the Zoom with you is always the journey.
It's always a journey to be on the Zoom together.
Achieved. Intention achieved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm just waiting for the other cat to learn to come near here, but because this one is the king, he will not allow that one to come near me. Because if she comes on the table somewhere and lays down, he would be eyeing her and like, go away, I can see you there. And then he would get up and leave.
He's like, I am the king of the humans.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, he is like, look at him.
He's so gorgeous. Look at, he looks royalty.
Like king, exactly. He always shows up on my videos, you know that.
Yeah, I love Ramses. He's an integral part of our sessions.
Yeah. Yeah, and it, you know, this thought always goes through my mind almost every single day, that he's already, 13 years old, right? That time flies, and is he 13? He was born January 1st, 2008. So 12 years old, right? Yeah, 12. So he just turned 12 years old. He shed 1 year. That, I mean, this time is going to come, and it's going to be really difficult for me because he's been my cat from day one, always on my lap, as you can see, and always sleeping with me in bed, on my pillow at night, either on my body pillow or on me or on my pillow by my head, where I can't even put my arms up because he's there.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I love him. So funny. I never considered myself a cat person before. Like, I love animals, but I was always afraid of cats because I was like, they're unpredictable. And I had when I was
Open.
thank you.
no? What, popcorn?
Yeah.
I was like jealous for a second. Did you just get to eat snow?
It's butter popcorn.
Yeah.
That looks good. Man, and Ethan, you keep flashing food in front of my face.
You're making her hungry.
You are making me hungry.
Okay,
Can we invent something so we can pass it through the computer?
I know, eh? It would probably be like a teleporting device.
Like this, here.
Yeah, the camera is right there. It's like, nope.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's like, you don't fool me no more. He's so happy. Okay, then go. We're gonna be finishing really quickly, okay?
What do I have here that looks like popcorn that I can like?
Yeah, and eat it. Look, should I get the bag now? Can you pick it up, please? I don't want her eating the popcorn bag. I have 3 children at home now. As a child too. Like you know what? I always loved cats, but I was never like obsessed with cats. I was more obsessed with dogs.
Same.
My dog passed away, and I was left with just 2 cats. He really like took over.
Yeah.
And he always had this dog-like personality, greeting me at the door when I come home. When he's hungry, he'll cry, he'll meow. If you ever hear his meow, it's really annoying.
When I was living in Maine with my roommate was my first time really bonding with cats, and now I'm like getting to know them that well because they would be home with me all day while my roommate was out.
Okay, eat them, please. Enough, okay, sweetie? No, take the popcorn, go eat. I don't want it on my table. Can you please put it in the kitchen? You had a handful of popcorn and you're full now?
No, more than a handful.
Okay, can you go put it on the table, please? Because I don't want it on my desk. Okay. He's like a little bird. Eats a little bit and that's it. Whatever works.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you said you got used to the cats.
Yeah, just like being with them all day, every day, like getting to know them, getting to know their personalities, and just like I developed such a deep, profound respect for them as a species that now I'm like, I love cats.
Yeah, they're very independent.
They are.
Yeah, and they don't care if you want them on your lap or not.
No, they're gonna do whatever they're gonna do. Like they're cool.
Speaking of the other cat, she probably heard. Look at her. There she is.
Oh.
So she just comes in here because she probably heard us talking about her, and now coming a little bit closer. She probably hasn't seen Ramses on my lap yet. There you go. And she likes to lay on papers.
She loves laying on papers.
Yeah, and this morning, so last night as I was getting ready to go to bed, I left my house slippers with the sweater that I was wearing by the stairs, so that way, upstairs by the stairs, so that way when I woke up in the morning, I could put my shoes on and put my sweater on, and because she's dark, like she's mainly black, and when she's sleeping, she curled up. I went to reach for my sweater, and then all of a sudden these two eyes look at me, and I'm like, oh, okay, she's sleeping on them, so I'm just gonna let her sleep on them. And I went downstairs with no sweater and no shoes because she was sleeping on my stuff.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Respect for the cat. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like to disturb them.
yeah.
So if they're laying on me or sitting on me, I just let them sit there and I wait until they're done. And then when they're done, then I can get up and go use the bathroom or go eat or whatever it is that I do, right? I wait for them to give me the go ahead.
Like with dogs, it's so different. Like I'll just go ahead and pick up a dog. I don't care if it wants to be picked up or not. Like my friend Marcy's little dog, I'll just be like, yoink. Like, I'm holding you now. Like, you can't do anything about it. Cats, I'm just like, I'll let you tell me what you want. I'm here. I'm your ally. I'm an observer.
Yeah, and that's exactly how they are, because sometimes when I pick them up and they don't want to be picked up, they'll vocalize themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they will.
Right? Some will, mine don't use their claws, but some cats have been known to use their claws, right? To tell you that they don't like something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've trained them pretty well to like to be handled, like to be carried, and that's why, like, for example, Ramses, no one can carry him in their arms. No one except me. I'm the only one that I can hold him. I can hold him like a baby. I can put him on my shoulders. I can move him around any way I want to, and he's comfortable, right? Whereas anybody else goes to even pick him up, he will vocalize that he does not like it. And some people he has bitten, not to draw blood, but he has bitten them to tell them, don't touch me.
Like a warning.
Yeah, right?
That's so gangster that you're the one who like gets to hold him.
Yeah, he's my kitty cat.
Yeah.
With this one, with this graceful Cleopatra, same thing. I'm also teaching her to be comfortable in my arms, to hold her like a baby. And her favorite is when I hold her like a purse on my side.
Yeah.
And she's okay that way. And she's actually okay with other people holding her as well.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, so she's okay. She doesn't like to be held, even by me, by anyone. She doesn't like to be constricted or restricted. Right?
I don't blame her.
But yeah, she'll learn.
Yeah. All right, enough about cats.
Yeah.
Should we talk about anabolic energy just to get the vibes back up?
Yeah.
Catabolic energy can be just like a deep ocean sometimes, and it's time to come back to the beach.
Yeah, and I think that would be a perfect way to end the session as well, to talk about anabolic, what that's all about, and perhaps even how can one have more of anabolic energy in their life.
Yeah.
And replace it, because that's the key here, right? Because knowing one and knowing the other, that's great, but then how can one can be replaced?
Yeah. I like to use the terms like transmute, transform, alchemize.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, because energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be transformed. So we're just applying like simple laws of physics to our own energy within ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So anabolic. So anabolic describes energy that is constructive, expanding, fueling, healing, and growth oriented. Mm-hmm. So anabolic energy helps you move forward and achieve positive, long-term, successful results, and is useful in leading yourself and others in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think the most valuable thing about anabolic energy is that feeling empowered to lead yourself in a positive, fueling, healing, regenerative, growth-oriented direction, and leading by example with that energy, because it is actually more rare than we would think. Like the average level of energy, at least I don't know what it is now. I imagine it's decreased because of, well, actually I don't know. But when I went through IPEC training in 2017, we learned that the average level of energy in the world was level 2.
Yeah, it's about to say level
Yeah.
1, 2.
So
Yeah, most leaders, especially. We're all leaders, but most companies, if we're talking about like companies and corporations, as leaders, as bosses, they're level 2.
yeah, well, you bring up such a good point by saying we're all leaders, because leadership, as defined through core energy coaching, leadership is just any interaction where influence occurs.
Mm-hmm.
If the leader is the person in the interaction who has the greatest impact on the other person.
Mm-hmm.
The impact can either be positive or negative, expansive or contracting, maximal or minimal.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think of us as these beings who have our own ripple effects, and our ripple effects can either be anabolic, grow, regenerate, fuel, heal, or catabolic and drain ourselves and others around us. Because when we are in that catabolic place, we are dependent on others for energy.
Yes.
So it is rare in our society to have anabolic leaders in actual leadership designations.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we don't really think of, when we've been programmed to think of leaders as the charismatic bosses, or sometimes people who use force, sometimes dictators, people who use coercion, ruthless. Like, at one point, it seems like we decided as a paradigm that ruthlessness means good, like leadership skills, because you don't attach to emotions. When in fact, the most expansive leadership uses emotional intelligence, because with emotional intelligence, true human resource in every soul, and water, nurture, cultivate, grow that resource, because you're tuned into what that person needs on an emotional level. The ruthless leader that we typically see does not care about emotions. Like, I remember having a talk with my former boss when I was working in corporate America about the younger people on our team, like the 25-year-olds that are on that age group. And they were having a really difficult time with his leadership style. And I was just telling him some of the things that would help them, like maybe if once in a while he engaged them instead of using me as a middleman to delegate. Like, they didn't see me as a leader, even though I knew deep down that my energy was actually the most impactful in terms of healing and growing. But his energy dominated. He had a lot of level 2 energy, a lot of level 3 energy. And when I brought up the impact that his energy was having, like when I was explaining, it's putting them on edge. When you come out of your office, like huffing and puffing, I see them all like sit up straight and like look nervous. And that's when they start making mistakes. And his response, like, he was like, I don't know what their problem is. Like, I had to, like, yada, yada, I had to pay my dues and this and that. And I think so much leadership is based on that antiquated mindset that their emotions don't matter. We all did it this way, so they have to do it this way too.
Mm-hmm.
And it neglects the emotions, like the emotional health and mental health of the others in any organization. And it could even be in a family. Like there could be a ruthless father who, whose energy dominates because everyone has to tiptoe around him. And he doesn't care about the impact that he's having. And that's an organization. And that's another important thing about this kind of work, is that any instance where there's more than one person, where there's two or more people, that's an organization.
Yeah.
And every person within that organization has the choice how they want to lead their energy.
Yeah, and it will affect the whole business as well. Yeah, that energy of one person affects the entire business, right? And that's why it's very important. Like as we're talking about, like anabolic and catabolic energy, I see it in a sense of like building a house, right? You build a house by brick by brick, right? Little by little, you're building a house, and that's anabolic energy, right? It's building construction. Now, when catabolic energy comes in, that's when you start taking out those bricks, right? And what can happen is if you're building a house, let's say you're halfway up building that house, and you take a brick or a couple of bricks in the wrong area, the whole house can tumble down. Right? So in that sense of even a little bit of catabolic energy can break and bring the whole entire house down. And if we're looking at the house as a corporation, as a business, or as a household, right? A household is still a corporation in a way.
Yeah, it's an organization.
Yeah, you take one brick out, the whole house can come down. Right? A little bit of catabolic energy can throw a balance out of whack entirely. So it's important to pay attention to our feelings and emotions, because they are the best indicators of what is happening, right? What is happening on the outside world that is making the inside world uncomfortable or sending messages, right? Because that's what they are. Those feelings and emotions are messages to us. And then it's our job to decipher what that message is. Now, if a person doesn't know what feelings and emotions are and what is happening in their body, then they're going to feel lost, like a mouse in a maze that has never been in that maze and not able to figure out their way in it. Right? But once they figure out their way through that maze once, they will remember. They do it the second time, they're going to remember better. Third time, fourth time, and then that maze becomes non-existent. There is no maze. It's just a straight line.
So the mouse becomes a master alchemist. And just as important as, like, as you were describing, our internalizing our external worlds, and like if we're not aware of what we're feeling, or like it's important to bring awareness to what we're feeling, like what we're taking on from the external world is just as important to be aware of our internal world, because our external world is our internal world. Like what we feel, what we're experiencing internally, that's what we see externally. That becomes our perception. And that's what this is all about, is getting to know your perception of reality, and your perception, the energy you're experiencing, is why you're seeing what you're seeing. Like I know when someone is like I once was on a call with someone, and everybody she was describing, like I was picking up on the stories she was telling me, and the words she was using to describe people, like she called one person controlling, she called someone else desperate, and it wasn't telling me anything about these other people. It was telling me her perception of reality. And it's actually tricky when in those situations to hold up a mirror when it's like everybody else's fault. The reason I love working with empaths is because I can just kind of like, I can be very subtle. I can even just like not say anything at all. I can just say, so what I'm hearing is X, Y, Z. And that, just hearing it back, like an empath is more intuitive, so with someone else, someone who's not as intuitive, it's so much harder for me to hold up a mirror. And this was one of those situations where it was hard for me to hold up a mirror. And like, so you're calling this person, controlling, you're calling this person, desperate, like what's the pattern you're seeing here? And, you know, how can, in those situations, we really want to challenge someone to shift their perception and expand. Those are interpretations, the interpretation block, you know, and in that situation, that's what I was recognizing, this person's interpretation of the external world. And in those situations, we challenge the interpretations, and there are different questions that coaches ask to do that. And we can say that.
As you're talking, like different questions come up for me, right? As what I would ask and how I would challenge that person.
I would love to hear how you would challenge that person.
Well, my biggest question would be, well, what does that say about you?
Mm-hmm.
Right? What feelings is that bringing up for you?
Right. So that's like where I love bringing it back is, okay, so what I'm hearing is this. How does that make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
You know, just bring it back, because it doesn't have anything to do with the other people.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like with coaching, I'm sure you have this experience. People love talking about other people. And it's so hard. It's like, ooh, keep having to bring it back to focus on you. And they could take these twists and turns, telling story after story about other people, what other people did, what other people said. But as a coach, we're not getting caught up in those stories. We're picking out pieces. Like, we're looking for, you know, okay, judgment here, victim here, and like learning more about our clients' perceptions of reality, but it's really never about the other people. Mm-hmm. And we use that information to challenge our clients' perceptions and interpretations and really help them to hold up the mirror to themselves as gently and unconditionally loving as possible, objectively as possible, because we all do it. That's the thing. Like, we all do this. Like, one person is like a guilt-free from, or like completely innocent of perpetuating these kinds of patterns. So we all do it. So it's so important not to judge ourselves. And that's what we do. We bring the attention back to, because we can't control other people. We could bring the attention back to what we can control, our own perceptions, our own interpretations, the stories we're telling ourselves, and just and then transmute them. That's why I love the question, how does it make you feel? Because like, let's say the client, the person I was speaking about, let's say, you know, her interpretation is like, so-and-so is controlling. And I say, well, how does that make you feel? Maybe helpless, you know, maybe it makes her feel helpless. And then that's where we begin. Because then when you can say, okay, so yeah, that makes sense. Like, if what you're thinking, if your thought is this person is controlling me or trying to control me, of course it would make you feel helpless. And then when you're feeling helpless, what do you do? Like, how likely are you to engage or show up? And usually not very likely. When we're feeling helpless to make a difference, we don't take action because there's no point. What's the point?
Mm-hmm.
And then we challenge it and say, okay, so, you know, how is that interpretation working for you? If not well, then what's a more empowering thought? Oh, this person is just trying to get shit done. You know, whatever it is, this person is just like taking charge of a situation, trying to get shit done. It's like, you know, just anything more empowering than this person is trying to control me, or whatever the thought is, that's a catabolic thought. Mm-hmm. And that happens. So that all happens. That process is an internal process, because whatever the other person's going to do their own thing. We can't control them, but you know, we can transmute the way we receive them, so it's coming from a place of love, where everything just flows way nicer, way easier, from a place of compassion for everyone around us.
Mm-hmm. And that's a better way to live as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all want peace, right? We all want love. We all want joy. We all want understanding. We all want to feel connected. But if we take that much time and that much energy to point the finger at somebody else and blame somebody else for how we feel without realizing that the favorite thing is like that you still have three fingers pointing back at you, realizing that at the end of the day, whatever is happening is all about you. So it's okay to be selfish in that time.
Like, I just love the image of pointing the finger, and just thinking, like, it just brought to mind how much energy we collectively spend on pointing the finger at others. Yeah. Like, especially like in America, we're just one country. It's just like one giant finger pointing. They did it. It's their fault. They're to blame. That's a lot of energy. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just a lot of untapped energy that can be transmuted through the portal. First, the portal of responsibility at level 3, and then the portal of love at level 4, and the portal of reconciliation at level 5. And there, where we can stop judging and come together and work together as a team. And
yeah,
like it's such an amazing opportunity to transmute. There's a whole lot of energy that's just like stagnating. It was levels 1 and 2. It's just like waiting to explode and expand. It's like a big bang.
Yeah, I love that. Level 1, for me, sometimes felt like a swamp. Right? And I've learned to recognize when I'm standing at the edge of that swamp and deciding, do I want to go in and sulk and soak in that time and be there, right? Because there's nothing wrong with level 1. There's times when we need it.
You know, sometimes we do. Sometimes we want to sulk. I love sulking.
Key is to recognizing it.
Right.
Where I am, I'm standing at the edge. Do I want to go in? Or do I not want to go in? Right? Or do I want to go to a different level, a different option, right? Maybe I want to climb a tree instead. Right? So sometimes I go right in and I soak in that swamp and I come out smelly, but I can rinse off. And then I can go to different levels, but it doesn't need to it doesn't, like, it used to be that I would go there unconsciously, and now I can choose to go there consciously, and I know that it's gonna suck and I'll still need to spend more energy getting out of it, right, and elevating myself, but I needed it at that time.
Right. I think that there's so much to be learned from going in the swamp. And like for me, level 1 grief and guilt and shame taught me things. Like, taught me what's important to me. It taught me about what I want to change about myself, like how I want to show up differently. And sometimes sometimes I'll choose to visit level 1. Like, sometimes I'll choose to watch a video on Sean King's Instagram that illustrates racial injustice in this country. And I'll watch the video so that I can experience the grief. And I'll have like a 10, 20-minute sob. Like, I'll sit on my yoga mat, curl up in a ball and sob and like think all those level 1 thoughts. Like, I don't want to be here. Why does racism exist? Like, none of this makes sense. Like, this isn't my world. I don't belong here. I'll experience all of that. And then I'll have a good cry, and then I'll get angry. Then I'll expand. I'll release it and expand to level 2. And at level level 2 energy is great because that's where we get the fire to make a change. And we could use it in the external world, like when it comes to like something like this, an example like this, racism, then I'll access that level 2 warrior spirit and I'm like, what am I going to do about it? Like, I'll rise up from my yoga mat, ready to make a change. Whatever that looks like to me. Mm-hmm. And even if it's like chanting up equality, chanting up peace. And so I learn a lot in those levels 1 and 2. And level 2 energy can also be so powerful when we apply it to our own, like what we're sick of about ourselves. Like when I'm sick of the way like when we worked together, when you were coaching me, and what I wanted to do is get my strength in my body back, like start doing my planks again. I got like, before coming to that conclusion, I got mad at my own bullshit. I was like, you're just making up excuses. Like my excuses came from level 1, and then my anger at my excuses came from level 2. And I was like, cut the shit, Goldberg. Like, you know what to do. You're not a victim. Like, just hold yourself accountable. Tell Yana what you want to do, and then you'll do it. And that's exactly what happened, you know.
I watched it happen. It was nice to watch. Yeah, I got this. This is all I need to do to get back into that rhythm that you were in. Yeah,
right.
I've been in that rhythm ever since.
My shit, for the most part.
All I heard was my shit. That's all I heard. Because you froze, and it's like, my shit. The freezes are the best parts, eh?
And here we are, back at level 6 joy.
Yeah, there you go. See? And at the same time, educating about levels, like showing them from 1, 2, 3, and 5, and 4, and 6, and jumping all over. And we're never really at one level.
Right. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when I eat edibles, I can get stuck at level 7.
Oh, I know.
And it's just like such a weird experience because while at level 7 sober, I can be the observer and participant at the same time. At level 7 on edibles, sometimes I can't like figure out how to participate. So my brain will literally, like, I'll be watching the humans, like patterns, like it just looks like patterns to me, like a simulation. And because at level 7, nothing is judged one way or the other. Everything just is. Things like to engage in conversation where people are laughing, you'd have to judge something as funny. Mm-hmm. So like if I'm at level 7 and like stuck there because I had an edible and people are laughing, I'm just sitting there watching, like my brain's like, oh, the humans are laughing. And I'm like, you should laugh. But I don't know if anything was funny. Like it's just like this weird, like.
Yeah, it's kind of like it cuts right through the bullshit in a way, right? And it's like, well, it's not really this, it's not really that, it just is.
It just is. That's why I now prefer to be alone when I'm super stoned. Because I love, like, because then I can travel, like, interdimensionally, like, sit in ceremony. And part of it, like, I have become so ceremonial about my plant medicine use. So when I'm in public and I'm in that state, like, I'm just watching everything like I'm an alien, like, oh, isn't this interesting? And even sober, I do find that because I do have a lot of, like, level 7 is my primary energy when not under stress. So I do find it does, it can get awkward in conversations, I think, like, not for me, but maybe for other people, maybe in the awkwardness might be with themselves, because again, like conversation is so based in talking about other people. Or talking about, or saying things like, oh, or judging things as like sad or bad or terrible. So I'll find myself in conversations with people where they're looking for a reflection to judge with them, like judge whether it's judge someone else or judge a situation as bad. And since with level 7 energy, nothing's judged one way or the other, it just is. I'll find myself just looking, like just watching someone like tell their story, and I'll just like smile. But to be authentic, I can't commiserate or corroborate. Is that the word? Whatever. Like no, it's like I can't. It's like I can't cooperate. That just sounds weird. I can't just like blindly agree with. Oh, I saw this on the news. Isn't that terrible? Or like so and so said this. Isn't that shocking? From level 7, no, like it's not terrible. It's not shocking. But that would, having that kind of response would seem out of touch and would make me seem like a weirdo. So I just find myself staring just right back at the person talking to me. I'll say nothing. And then I often have their own internal process. And as long as I'm a presence, like I find most of my job here as a human on planet Earth is to just be a loving presence. And sometimes loving, to be unconditionally loving, means to not people please. Like in those situations, I used to, the inner people pleaser in me would be like, oh yeah, like that sucks, or oh yeah, like screw that person, or just like so whoever is speaking to me feels better about their opinion. But that's not necessarily unconditionally loving, because maybe their opinion is holding them back from growth. So I'm able to challenge their opinion by not reacting at all, even not saying anything at all, and like my own gentle way of being a presence for someone else to discover their process.
That's one of my favorite ways to react to something that someone says, whereas normally the old Yana would have been like, no. Let me tell you how it should be, right? Let me help you, right? Let me help you figure it out, or let's change the view, or this or that. Now it's like, okay, that's what it is, and let them go without trying to push anything on the person, or without holding any kind of judgment, and just hearing what they have to say and actually hearing them and not needing to respond in the end, because right, I might have my own opinions, but for me to even try to respond, that's the ego trying to get involved, and the ego trying to kind of lead and say, well, you can change their opinion, right? You can fix them.
Well, that'd be a reaction, like like the impulse to change, to want to change their opinion, to like project your opinion, like that would be more of a reaction. But you're choosing your response, even if that response is silence.
Yeah.
Like that can sometimes be the most powerful response.
And it used to be extremely uncomfortable for me to sit in silence. But I have learned that that is one of my favorite things to do, especially after I ask a question, and just sit there quietly. It's like, okay, let's go.
It is, like it gives space.
Yeah.
Provide space.
Yeah.
Like we all have a process to discover, and sometimes like we discover that process in the silence, in that space, in that space between opinions.
Yeah.
There's so many opinions. We don't have much space, like especially with social media, we don't have much space from opinions. And then everybody's opinions get like lodged in our heads, and they all play on repeat in different areas of our brains.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we just need space to filter them through, weed them out, and just like get back to center.
Yeah. And some people, they express themselves differently, right? And they also get to their solutions differently. Some people will be quiet and processing it through, while other people will talk.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're talking, they answer their own questions.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
People.
Oh yeah. And it could be different situations that require a different process. Like when I was recovering from the verbal and emotional psychological abuse from my last relationship, I needed to tell the story over and over. Like I needed to talk about the things that he put me through over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And the discrepancies, and I needed to make sense of it. And the only way I could was just like tell my story over and over until I finally felt like I was heard and understood.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a long time.
Yeah.
So that was like at that time for that situation, that was my process. And I find like depending on what someone's been through, that like repeating the story over and over, it was actually like it was actually helpful for me.
Yeah, I can relate to that as well, because I mean we all have stories that we've things we've gone through, which are stories, and for me it made a difference speaking out loud, right? Speaking out loud about those stories, it made a big difference for me. Where some people, they do it in their head.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know which one is better. My personal opinion, based on my story, based on me, for me, it's best to speak it. So that way, I'm not only using my expression with my mouth, I'm also listening to what I'm saying, right? And paying it.
I find writing it to journaling has a similar impact, and sometimes even more. Like, you know, basically the truth, like your own truth needs to be witnessed. And when it's just, I find when it's just circulating around in my own head, it's never witnessed.
No.
It just stays circulating. So either writing,
it's
yeah,
and it's not like that loop is very short, as I've noticed. It's very short loop. It's usually like a few sentences together, but when you start writing, or when you start speaking, right, speaking or writing, or some people even singing, right, and expressing that what is going on, that story gets longer and longer and longer, and it is a form of releasing it as well. Just like a child would tell you what they think, and they would cry and throw the temper tantrum. We as adults don't have the luxury to throw a temper tantrum in the store, because I mean, I even look a little odd. Like I'm just picturing it. You on the floor throwing a temper tantrum in the store. But we have different ways of how to go through that loop and extend it, and figure out what is really going on.
Right. And that's how trauma holds so much power, is by playing on a trauma loop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a mess in the brain. It's like I'm picturing like a messy like just like a messy ball of yarn, like all tangled and stuff. And then when you start speaking it to someone or writing it down, you're kind of like neatly winding it up and making sense of it. And trauma loops are just like they're as like immediately threatening as, like, that's why PTSD I consider as immediately threatening as like physical danger.
Yeah.
Like it's scary, and like you're like when you're experiencing a PTSD moment or a trauma loop, like your mental health is in danger. And so that experience, like that's how I felt when I was experiencing my trauma loops, and just like replaying scenes, like getting yelled at, like I would just replay over and over in my head, to the point of like suicidal thoughts. And that's where it gets to be like, no, that's like an immediate threat.
Yeah.
And so being able to just like be witnessed in them was the best medicine. Like even by a friend, like I saw a therapist for it, she wasn't helpful, but talking to my friend Marcy, and just like being seen, and not like having anyone try to solve my problems for me, and not having people be like, oh well, you like he was lying, like you're not those things. Like it didn't matter. I needed to get to that point on my own.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I actually, because you were talking about trauma, and what that reminded me of something that I had recently just learned, is that as we, from the day that we were born, right, as we're growing up, at any age, what happens with our body, with our soul, right, when we face a certain trauma, a part of our soul runs and hides. It goes somewhere else. Okay. So as we realize that, it's very important to now go and search for that missing soul. And this is the reason why a lot of people, I believe, are feeling like they're missing a part of themselves, or pieces of themselves are missing, is because through those traumas, the soul protects itself. So
Yes.
it's not lost entirely. A little piece goes there, a little bit there. Now, it's very important that if a person decides that now they're ready to heal through the traumas and find those missing pieces of their own soul, that before you take that piece of soul back, you heal it first, and then only then you take it back. Because if you take it back when it's not healed, you can relive all that, and it can make things worse potentially. But that, like, to me, when I heard that, I was like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. Why we go through our life, and little by little we're like shedding pieces. Like it's almost like as a bird, you're walking and you're shedding like one piece of the tail, a feather falls down, and you're not aware of it, and all of a sudden you look back, and or you feel like there's parts of your tail missing, and you look back and you're like, oh dude, there is, right? There's some feathers on my tail that are missing and they're gone, or maybe there is no more tail left anymore, right? There's just a little naked tail butt left and with no feathers. And then once we realize that's when we can start to, it's like awareness, right? Once we become aware of it, then we can start to work on ourselves and start to pull those pieces back.
That's the magic of shadow work. This is why I love shadow work. And it's not like I wouldn't recommend that anybody like go straight to the deepest, darkest memory or trauma like right out the chute. You develop tools over time to be able to sit with those dark, painful, like the parts of our soul we've been hiding. And I picture it as like going through a cave, and the parts of our soul that have gone into hiding are buried under rocks, and we go in there with a like pitchfork or whatever it is, like a mining fork or mining tool, and we like hack at it until we uncover this like beautiful glowing crystal that's a part of our soul that was there all along, just buried under shame and guilt and grief.
The diamond.
And and it's our jobs as coaches, like we're not going to do the digging for anyone. We're just going to hold the flashlight and say, look, I'll be here. Like I'm watching you do this. It's amazing that you're doing this. Keep going. I got you. but we can't do that digging for that person, and we can intuit what part of their soul's high, but
Now,
they're the
I know there's going to be people that'll be like, well, what do you mean you can't do that for me? Why do we not do that for a person? Why will we not dig and break that stone and uncover the diamond for our clients, for the people that we interact with? Why don't we do that?
well, depriving them of the journey would deprive them of the tools, so that every time they would need someone else to do it for them. It's like the teach a man a fish analogy. Like,
Yeah.
give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man a fish, he eats his whole life.
Yeah.
And we also don't do that for them because we trust that they have their own set of intuition. They have their own set of wisdom. And it's just our job to champion them on their journey to uncover that wisdom. Because their intuition is different from ours. Like a client's internal GPS systems, like their own set, their own unique set. These are all these divine, unique beings of light. So it's not our journey to dig it out for someone else. Like it's their responsibility to excavate their own wisdom, and then always have that experience, and they could do it. And that's when, so once they have that experience with the coach helping them as a champion and supporter, and we're just here to validate the experience, acknowledge it, and witness them. Once they have that experience, then they can take it into the deeper into the cave, where those truly, like I had my first coach in 2013 who helped me clear out some of the more immediate blocks I was dealing with. And then over the years, it kept expanding and expanding. I kept going deeper and deeper into my shadows. And I saw in, 3-4 years later, some aspects of my psyche, some aspects of my shadows that I never had my coach let me there right in the beginning, and was and told me what it was, what I was blocking right out the chute. I would have been I don't know that I would have made it. I would have been, I would have been so horrified, so ashamed that I don't know if I would have come back from it.
Yeah.
But, over the years, I had the tools. I got to choose when it was time for me to address something from childhood. And I had the tools to, and through the years, through adolescence, all these painful, shame, where so much of the shame and guilt lit was living in my subconscious mind. I had the and dig it out and process, and because I knew that I was forgiven. I was able to then understand myself, understand why I made the choices I made, and why I had the reactions, and fight or flight, whatever it was back then. Why I didn't advocate for myself, why I didn't advocate for others, all those memories that I had hid away but never really go away. I had the tools to then face them while holding space for myself and holding myself it's okay. You did your best at the time with what you had.
Yeah, and it's when we read a book, if we go to the very end and we read the end of the book, and we know what the book is all about by reading the end, we're missing the whole journey, the whole part of it, right? The most important key to how they came to that resolution, how they came to that solution. And if that was given to someone, if that was given to you, you wouldn't have been given that gift of the journey itself, going to the
exactly. The journey is the most valuable. It'd be like if someone told me at the beginning of my last relationship, this dude is gonna like psychologically abuse you, and you're gonna have this issue with your psyche after a few years of this, I wouldn't have created empath warrior training. And I wouldn't have like taken this deep dive into the study of narcissistic abuse and sociopathic abuse that now I find fascinating. And now I get, like I had I skipped that journey, and having attracted that partner revealed to me these deep childhood wounds and patterns that I would have never, like, who knows if I ever would have addressed them or been made aware of them. So it was the journey, like my sense of self-worth, and like where that lack of self-worth came from. Like, why did I think that love is based in how much abuse I could take and still show up being like, I'm going to show, like, the main karmic pattern that I kept playing out was withstanding abuse, and being like, but I'm going to prove to you that I'm so loving that I'm never going to leave no matter how bad you treat me. I don't know that I would have figured that out, that my ego was basing my self-worth in that, had I not gone through that relationship. So had someone spared me the journey, I would probably still be missing that key.
So there's a lot of value in going through the journey, no matter how difficult it is at that time.
Absolutely.
Because then looking back, we see all that gold that we mined, and I didn't realize that there was so much gold there and so many diamonds sprinkled all over the place, because we were in that cave, in that dark place, not seeing it all. And then looking back with that flashlight, we're able to see all that beauty and all that shine and sparkle.
Exactly. I just realized it's 1:00. So I got
we can talk for hours.
I know, like time just kind of stood still there. I was like, it was like just 11. So I actually got to get going, but
you too in that case, since it's 1:00.
Whoops, homeschool.
Yay.
This was fun. Yeah, we could talk forever. It always feels so weird, like, ending them, because we could talk forever.
I know, and sometimes I notice many times we'll end it, and then it's like, well, but then this, but then this.
Yeah. But that's why we'll just keep doing these.
Yeah.
All we've got is time, so.
Yeah, and I hope this is where everyone that's watching these realizes that all we have is time right now, and that we have a choice whether we can sit down and watch a movie, or we can sit down and watch this movie and learn a thing or two or three or four, and hopefully taking notes.
Yeah, and hopefully, like I think my as we wrap up is that I just hope some people feel seen. At least I hope one person out there feels a little bit more seen, a little bit more understood, a little bit more accepted, a little bit more accepting of themselves. So
yeah, exactly, because we're not doing this for ourselves. We are a little bit.
Yeah,
right. Exactly, but for the most part, we're doing all of this.
This is fun for me. Like, when you and I are just sitting shooting the shit, I'm having a blast. So
yeah.
And it's also educational for our tribes, for our shared tribes, our individual tribes, whoever feels recognized hearing our words.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well,
all right.
103, here we go.
All right, thank you for a wonderful session, and
you too.
Until next time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.